They are the things hiding under your bed. They are the things that go bump in the night. From goblins to kobolds to bullywugs. Their strength is in their numbers, and if you're not careful, these little creeps will lead you into their maze of horrors. Hi, I'm Jonathan Pruitt, and this is Jim Davis. It's WebDM, and today we're talking about the low-hit die little guys. So Jim, most people think of kobolds as just fodder.
Right.
You're an evil overlord.
Right.
How do you use them to your advantage?
To me, I like to think of kobolds as the Viet Cong. So they are...
Guerrilla warfare.
Guerrilla warfare. They are kobolds, and creatures similar to them are masters of guerrilla warfare. They know that they're fighting against foes that are vastly superior than them, probably. Mm-hmm. They have limited resources. Kobolds are going to use hit-and-run tactics. They're not going to attack all at once necessarily. They're going to attack enough to get advantage of their pack tactics feature. They're going to do their best to try to separate the party. One person gets alone, falls into a pit trap and gets attacked by whatever's down there, or gets caught in a deadfall, a cavern roof collapses in.
Right.
There's a lot of traps, a lot of mechanical devices that kobolds are going to use to help ensure that. I think that fighting kobolds on their home turf should be an exercise in annoyance to the point of being deadly.
Right.
Death by 1,000 cuts style enemies.
Yeah.
Right. They're gonna launch a salvo of sling bullets at you from behind a barricade and then retreat to another point. And in between that, there is a whole layer of traps and tricks and deadfalls and dead ends that the players have to get through before they're finally able to come to grips with their enemy. And then once they do, they make short work of them. But getting to the enemy should be the real problem in a kobold fight.
Right. And so what sets goblins apart, since they are similar, but not really?
It's one of those questions of you have two really low hit die enemies, they both attack in large groups. What DMs can do to help distinguish between the two is that goblins are brave in large numbers, but cowardly individually.
Right.
They're going to take advantage of their feature of allowing them to both disengage or hide as a bonus action. Mm-hmm. So that means there's going to be a lot of running in and then leaving before the players get an opportunity to fight them.
Right.
They're going to attack from hiding as much as possible. They're going to use the forest as cover. They're going to use the warg allies that they might sometimes have to pin down the enemies. In the same way that they're kind of guerrilla fighters, that they let the player's strength work against them. They don't ever let them get them all in one room or in one location. Mm-hmm. Always make sure that the goblins are hiding or sneaking or in small groups so that there's never an opportunity that one fireball takes them all out.
But you're still draining resources from the PCs.
Right, you're still draining resources. So a goblin encampment in the middle of a forest somewhere is going to be, there might be a mix of an underground location, maybe they're still up in the trees, maybe they've got pit traps and little spots in the forest where they can go and hide. A goblin in the forest is like a ghost or a phantom that they should never know exactly how many of them there are until they all come out at the very end to deliver the killing blow.
Right. Bullywugs.
Yes, the bullywugs. The bullywug rounds out the triad of adventure locations that a lot of low-level D&D takes place in. Caves, kobolds, forests, and goblins, swamps for bullywugs. Mm-hmm. So being able to hide as well as they do in the swamp means that they might make more ranged attacks. They might hide from a group of reeds or a stand of trees or something, making use of the swamp terrain to kind of keep the party on edge. They might make use of swamp creatures that they sort of push at the players while the bullywugs hang back. Giant slugs and alligators and swamp octopus, whatever strikes your fancy. Swamptopus. Yeah. But they're sort of, all three of them very similar.
Right.
But at the same time, the terrain that they're encountered in allows you to use different tactics and different situations to put your players in so that at least can be different. It can feel different. It can have a different spells are more useful. Obviously, like a move earth or a shape stone is going to be great versus kobolds, whereas a water breathing or a pass without trace is going to be really good for fighting in a swamp.
Right.
It allows you to use different resources when taking out the creatures.
What is your favorite thing about role-playing the lesser of the races?
I think comedy is probably one. Yeah. D&D can be, it doesn't have to be, but it can tend towards sort of a seriousness that at times can get a little grating or a little heavy. We just got done liberating the village from the evil cultists, and there was a lot of atrocities committed there. It can just kind of like, all right, this is a little heavy for us for right now.
Right.
bring in some little guys. Bring in some kobolds. I mean, it might not be fair to shoehorn the little guys into the comedy role.
Right.
But at the same time, a combination of low intelligence, cowardice, and just sort of being a small creature as an inherent comedy in it. There's a lot of levity.
Yeah, you get done with the combat, you take out most of them, but of course you want to question one or two.
Yeah.
And it's all, if you have a DM worth of salt, that loves to kind of play it up, it's usually a pretty comical encounter, like interrogating the last goblin sitting there surrounded by this party of adventurers whose blood stained in their comrades, leftovers or whatever, and they're asking you, where's the big bad guy?
Right.
Who has, obviously threatened to kill you already.
Right.
Your master.
Obviously, yeah.
So, what do I do?
Who are you more afraid of? There's voices.
Yes.
I love the post-combat interrogation with a goblin or a kobold, because it means that you go from life or death, we're murdering these things, because unless you're a first level player, you're not ever really at risk from any one kobold or goblin. So there's a nice, we went from life or death encounter to this one little creature is entirely at our mercy, and let's watch it grovel. And as a DM, you just get to do a lot of fun stuff. One too many times where I've had a player want to take on one of those prisoners as their henchman,
right,
or as the new party member.
The thing is, though, about goblins, they're not inherently evil, are they? Or are they? Is that maliciousness evil?
This is a great opportunity when building a world and including goblins in it for the DM to ask themselves, what does alignment mean in my campaign? I personally think that alignment gets too much of a bad rap, and that there are too many people willing to jettison alignment because they feel like it pigeonholes people or that it's too restrictive, whereas I see it as more opening up options. Right. So there are some creatures that are always a certain type of alignment. Angels are almost always going to be a good alignment.
Right.
Devils are almost always going to be lawful evil. Same with dragons, genies, things like that. But for creatures that are born and have a life and a culture and an existence, locking them all into one alignment is rather restrictive. So what if goblins are just mean and nasty and malicious because that's how they're treated, or because that's just how their religion functions?
It becomes a nature versus nurture.
Absolutely. And so it does raise those questions of whether, when the PCs show up to the Goblin Warren to eradicate it because the local farmers are tired of having their children stolen and their livestock slaughtered in the fields, then what do the players do? Are there good aligned players? They might say, listen, we could relocate this goblin tribe. We could negotiate with it. It opens up an array of options that the players have other than just combat, which is fun and kind of why we're here, but also allows us to do something different.
Because what's stopping that group of players from, say, making a deal with that goblin tribe to stop killing livestock and taking children, and maybe the farmers will donate certain livestock if they protect the farm from other outside.
Absolutely.
It's a missed opportunity if you just go in there and slaughter everything, right?
Right, it's a missed opportunity. And, you can look to, our own history for that, where there have been pastoral peoples who have bordered on nomadic peoples. Right. That where raiding might be common, and the more pastoral settled peoples say, all those people that are out there raiding and trying, burning down our crops, they're just evil.
Oh, they're evil savages.
Evil savages, right? It's like, well, it's just their way of life. And so it allows you to introduce that kind of moral complexity in the game that I think can be really fun. It's not for everybody. Sometimes you just want to kill a bunch of goblins and not worry about it.
That's true.
But it's an option and a toolbox for DMs to use for their campaign.
Because at some points, you have to ask, what would Driss do?
Absolutely. When dealing with mind flayers and other aberrations, including even maybe the Beholder, it's entirely within the DM's right to draw heavily on sci-fi and horror when thinking of adventures for the mind flayer. So, this really, as the years have progressed since the 1970s, D&D has moved further and further away from the science fiction and horror that helped inspire it. And so mind flayers are one of those things that tethers the game to that origin. It was nothing for early adventurers to find an abandoned rocket sled that they then have to put together, or a laser pistol or something like that. There are whole adventures that take place in crashed spaceships that are done up like dungeons.
Something a little more along the lines of Jack Vance.
Right, like Jack Vance, or John Carter of Mars.
Right. Thanks again for watching WebDM. We're going to have new ones every Wednesday. Tell your friends.
come back next week.